This is a story of how men who use terror become its victims, about the consequences today of the mass assassination program by which a desperate America believed it could win the Vietnam War. That program was codenamed Phoenix.
Phoenix was, in its late stages, a desperate attempt to win the war, to bring the thing back on our side politically, by simply going in and assassinating or neutralizing the infrastructure of the Viet Cong, when we realized about 1968 on the official level that the war would have been doomed.
What did the Phoenix program come to symbolize, at least for you?
A computerized genocide program.
Computerized genocide, that was no exaggeration. As the Hearts and Minds program failed, the euphemisms became increasingly deadly. Pacification, neutralization became elimination. Supervised by U.S. military intelligence, a network of agents, informers, and interrogation centers were established on a scale so vast it was computerized. Names, faces recorded so they could be erased. The FBI helped program the computers, the CIA funded Operation Phoenix, and for 4 long years the machines clattered like guillotines. Saigon, 1969. Special police assigned to Phoenix conduct a random night search for any Viet Cong suspect. No search warrants, no trial, no appeals. This way, 300,000 political prisoners led off into the night. And if a secret police system can be exported, how much easier to establish it at home? Using ID cards, the names of every adult in this sovereign republic were linked to the CIA computers. Operation Phoenix, like the mythological bird, was to be a resurrection from the ashes of Vietnam. There was this difference. The legendary Phoenix was a bird of life, America's Phoenix a bird of death. The Phoenix program wasn't war. It was officially endorsed torture and terror, wholesale assassination, some say genocide, victory via a body count. And now today, Phoenix, or the CIA war, can be seen as the start of America's decade of degeneracy, corrupting the military, betraying, traumatizing.
There were no repercussions. I could, I went out in the field and did a job, hit Mr. X, hit Mr. X, bring Mr. X back alive, bring Mr. X back alive. That's what I did.
A Phoenix firing squad, usually one CIA man directing. We must emphasize that Phoenix was no aberration, not the excess of a few. After the failure of the ground troops in the late 60s, Phoenix became official U.S. strategy. Of course, the other side used terror as well. But if this was a justification, it was self-defeating. In brutalizing its own people, the U.S. turned the knife on itself.
Serving in Vietnam, for me, was the culmination of a lifelong ambition, I guess, to live a life as a cowboy, carrying my 6-gun, dealing with the Indians.
The spooks took over, and the GIs or grunts became so many cowboys out killing Indians or gooks. In 2 programs, this week and next, young Americans themselves tell how they were brutalized and left feeling dehumanized. The evidence of these programs is that for the Americans, some of the worst of the war has yet to be faced. At these unique war crimes hearings, veterans themselves admit their guilt. Barton Osborne, a Phoenix operative.
Consider yourself a war criminal under Nuremberg?
Yes, for some of the things I did in Vietnam, I feel that they definitely were criminal.
and the judgment extends, becomes ever more damning as the veterans speak out. Another Phoenix man, Jeff Stein.
That nobody gave a damn when I came home. I remember showing movies of Saigon to my family. They were just talking and laughing and weren't even looking at the movies and didn't care. When I began to talk about Phoenix, they certainly didn't want to hear that.
I saw other interrogations to describe them briefly. The use of the insertion of a 6-inch dowel into the semicircular canal of one of my detainees' ears and the tapping through to the brain until he died. The starving to death of a Vietnamese woman who was suspected of being a part of the local political education cadre.
Barton Osborne, who directed Phoenix operations in Da Nang for 1.5 years, tells of the atrocities before a congressional hearing into the appointment of William Colby as director of the CIA. Colby was the architect of Phoenix, the man who became the unseen generalissimo of the war, its chief terrorist and propagandist.
The Phoenix program was not a program of assassination. The Phoenix program was a part of the overall pacification program, which was designed to strengthen the government of South Vietnam.
Colby was believed and rewarded. The final Phoenix assassination toll was more than double Colby's early estimate.
How many roughly would you estimate were eliminated?
Well, the elimination was all three categories because the word eliminate referred to the entire program against the apparatus.
Well, you can say kill them if you want.
We said kill. I believe that the figures in mid-71 that were testified to at that time were that some 28,000 had been captured, some 20,000 had been killed, and some 17,000 had actually rallied by that time.
When he told Congress, when he was put under oath and made to tell about the specifics of Phoenix, and he said there were 20,000 plus killed. And then he was pinned down to say, well, no, he didn't know that any of those 20,000 people were necessarily guilty of anything, that they might have in fact been innocent Vietnamese bystanders to the war.
Mr. Colby has testified that he began to hear about the abuses of the Phoenix program, as he called them, and take correctional measures. If my operation was one of the...
Jeff Stein succeeded Barton Osborne as Phoenix director at Da Nang. Their evidence corroborates.
At that time. I certainly would have heard about some of those correctional measures, and none were taken.
For the most part, who were the people caught up and eliminated in Phoenix?
The Vietnamese.
The ordinary Vietnamese became the prey of Phoenix. Only a fraction of the 48,000 known to be assassinated were proved to be Viet Cong activists. And the grim statistics are those of the interrogation centers. The death and torture of casual captives isn't recorded. Phoenix relied on civilian informers who used it to settle old political and religious hates. An informer got paid $6, and Operation Phoenix cost $2 billion. It became indiscriminate mass murder. It accounted for My Lai, many, many My Lais.
My Lai, the type of operation that My Lai consisted of was very common.
Very common?
Very common, according to many veterans who I've talked to over the past 5 years.
I started realizing how this fingering was leading to an awful lot of brutality, and I was shocked at the time of discovering that people whom I would name through my nets and pass on would eventually be arrested and tortured. I saw several of them get tortured to death. I saw several of them be tossed out of helicopters, or people being tossed out of helicopters in the course of interrogation. I saw a lot of brutality targeted on the Vietnamese.
How many people survived this kind of treatment? Did any of them survive?
I never heard of one surviving.
At the Colby hearings, there was this sworn testimony from Barton Osborne answering Congressman Reed. Osborne, I never knew in the course of all those operations any detainee to live through his interrogation. They all died. Reed, they all died? Osborne, they all died. There was never any reasonable fact that any one of those individuals was in fact cooperating with the Viet Cong, but they all died. There was a Phoenix Center in every region.
Yes.
Now, were these staffed by Americans?
Yes.
In the interrogation centers, were there always Americans on the staff?
Yes, always.
Conducting
Americans
the
and-
interrogations?
Yes.
Conducting them?
Yes.
Water torture, electrical shock, slow strangulation, and repeated rape were the favorite methods. But in the military terminology, no one ever died. They were neutralized with extreme prejudice.
Now, the key to understanding how involved the military got is the word liaison. Example, I could turn in a report where it would say one person who was suspected of being a Viet Cong, unconfirmed, uncorroborated, should be at this point coordinate at this time on this day. And I would find out later that a B-52 strike had hit that spot at that time and wiped out a whole village. Now, that's overkill, and that, I think, is an extreme example of how involved the military machine got in the cutting edge of Phoenix. There were people I knew in Vietnam who got off on victimizing the Vietnamese, very definitely. I spoke with people daily who were ear collectors, something that always freaked me out. I just never understood the paradox between their seeming intelligence on the one hand and their total crudity on the other hand. Had a neighbor in Da Nang who used to dry ears on his clothesline, that kind of thing. So there are Americans who have been traumatized one way or the other to participate in those kind of brutal programs. There are also, thank God, people who are intelligent and who have enough perspective to stand back when they see something like that and question it.
In the summer of 1972, I read Bury My Heart at Wounded Knee. And that was when it all became clear. Vietnam became perfectly clear.
The Vietnamese were the Indians.
Yes.
That was Indian country.
It was Indian country, as has been said many times.
Does Phoenix still go on? Is it still existent?
As long as this country wants to maintain an empire, Phoenix, by any name, is a necessary concomitant to maintaining that empire.
Do you think Americans really want to know the facts?
Well, I can't say whether the American people want to know the facts. I know that the Congress must learn the facts.
Throughout this summer, Senator Frank Church has conducted congressional hearings on CIA excesses. Phoenix was by far the worst excess. 3 years earlier, a congressional inquiry into Phoenix expressed outrage and shame and demanded that the U.S. government pursue the crimes. Well, the evidence is in, but it seems the jury forever out. The Nazis had their final solution. The Phoenix program was termed an accurate solution. Today, Senator Church appears to absolve Colby and Co., but to me, an accurate judgment would be that of Nuremberg. Somehow, some way, Colby and his kind should be neutralized.
Once you've hunted the most dangerous game, man, what else is there? You know? They shoot back.
Wayne Porcelli was 2.5 years in Vietnam, special forces, clandestine operations, and misses it.
It's like a need for drugs, almost.
And so the war comes home. The claws of Phoenix strike now at the Americans themselves, the new victims of its viciousness. Porcelli was a high school teacher. His specialty, government, until he found guns.
About a year ago, I started thinking about kicking this life. Know that I wanted to be a professional soldier.
Now he's signed up to be a mercenary in Rhodesia. saying he cannot be an ordinary American again.
I'm afraid of middle-class American 9-to-5 existence, to die peacefully in bed without having laid it on the line again. I just can't face that.
It's a day before his departure for Rhodesia to head up a counter-terror unit, and Wayne Porcelli celebrates his 28th birthday. His birthday wish, to reach 29. How much has Vietnam warped the mind of young America? How many Porcellis? How casual, how profitable has killing become? Porcelli found his new job as a hired gun through Captain Robert Brown, who runs a mercenary referral service here in Denver, Colorado. He calls it Phoenix Associates. And he says his magazine has 8,000 subscribers. He too was in Special Forces, and though he won't talk of his secret Vietnam duties, he opened up a Pandora's file of fantasies, showing us 1,200 letters from would-be mercenaries. If I hadn't read some of the letters, I just simply wouldn't have believed them. There's one from the bodyguard of an American ambassador in Asia. There's two here from Canadian military establishments, which might surprise people at home. And this one from an ex-Special Forces man in Vietnam who says the next time I kill someone, it won't be to get some dumbass politician reelected. So it's a pretty cold-blooded approach.
There are people, especially Vietnam veterans, that aspire to continue in the line of work of a warrior. I suppose you could perhaps describe it as the ultimate test of machismo, you see.
What do you think is the main motivation of the people who apply? Is it that?
I think it's very hard to come up, I'm sure a psychoanalyst would have a field day with perhaps...
Certainly would. Brown's mercenary trade is minor compared to that of the U.S. government itself. Here, Vietnam veterans crowd the Vinnell Corporation offices in Los Angeles to sign up as military advisors in Saudi Arabia. Vinnell hired 700 corporate mercenaries and got 7 times as many applicants. And the disturbing factor, Vinnell was filling an $80 million Pentagon contract to export an army. Vietnam's horrors have become respectable, exploitable. Wayne Porcelli merely projects official morality.
I put a lot of people away. I have no bad dreams. I have no conscience conflicts. At one point, they had turned me into a Superman. I strode the earth as a veritable colossus, you know. And that's where I am. That's where I was. That's where I want to be. Being a cowboy again. Going out there dealing with Indians.
2.5 million GIs served in this dehumanizing war. Grunts against Gooks. The depersonalized horrors becoming everyday behavior that leaves so many of them now devoid of feeling or normal standards. Leaves a deep psychotic confusion and rage that's both dangerous and unpredictable if ignored. So says Yale psychiatrist Robert Lifton.
Sometimes that rage can be converted into very constructive sources of behavior, energizing, animating sources of behavior. Sometimes it can be destructive. The government itself seems to want to make use of some of those traits related to anger and potential violence by turning a lot of the veterans into policemen. It's said that the tactical police force in a number of leading cities is now mainly manned by Vietnam veterans, and that's the group that often deals with potential violence or riots or whatever. I think that there are really profound and worrisome issues around all this.
Go ahead and put first canister of gas in.
SWAT, Special Weapons and Tactics. Weapons used in Vietnam, tactics taught in the infantry. SWAT isn't a fiction of television. It's the appalling new trend in American cities, a militia police, the overkill of Vietnam. Here in Atlanta, the SWAT team practice in abandoned houses using blank ammunition. But the M16 automatic rifles and the methods are real enough. SWAT is what the Fort Benning infantry rookies have graduated to. This was basic training for GIs groomed to be grunts in Vietnam. The mock Vietnamese villages, so often burned and neutralized, no longer exist at Fort Benning, but that early brainwashing has proved a two-edged sword.
And I think that people in Vietnam, they're like people in America. They want to be free too. So they ask upon the United States to come over and help them get that freedom. That's why I think we're over there, and I'm proud to go.
America can regain a sense of pride that existed before Vietnam. But it cannot be achieved by refighting a war that is finished.
Summer of '75. President Ford tells Americans they must forget Vietnam. But they cannot, nor should they, not yet.
Have you brought back the anger and violence of Vietnam?
I think it's being exhibited every day in the U.S., and I think it'll continue to even multiply.
In a San Francisco bar, everywhere in America today, the grunts try to articulate the way back. They are the final victims of Vietnam, seeking the old phoenix, a resurrection, but seeing only the ashes.
The SWAT teams that are coming up, some of the technology and things that came up out of Nam with choppers, M16s on the policemen, automatic weapons, it's something I don't think would have been tolerated 10 years ago, 15 years ago.
Whether I'm for or against violence is immaterial. That's whether I'm for or against the sun or the moon. It's going to happen anyway. We're in a revolution now.
The conscience and condition of the Nam vets is in sad, frightening contrast to President Ford's complacent assurance that Americans can forget the war, put it behind them. They cannot, nor should they. And of course, what poisons America infects us all. The concern goes beyond conscience. The Nam vets share a neurosis, a sickness. Whether hawk, dove, or haunted, whether in combat or not, all shared in the corruption of that war. The war is over, but the evil radiates outward and onward. Next week we shall see how the Nam vets have brought back the violence. Mentally consumed by it, physically reliving it, they fill the prisons and the psychiatric wards.
You look at where we are, you look at the statistics, you look at how many Vietnam vets are in jail, you look at how many Vietnam vets are unemployed, and the statistics are twice the average of the American public at large. Why? I mean, who are we going to turn to? It's still with us, it's still a part of us, it's going to be a part of us for the rest of our lives. And we're not saying, hey America, wake up, we're just saying, hey America, we're back, how about accepting us? And they don't want to do it.
A renowned writer, Albert Camus, once summarized that man's struggle is to become neither the executioners nor the victims in life. We have seen the executioners, next week the Americans as victims.
We had the prettiest equipment. We had the most beautiful equipment. We had guns that were beautiful. Let me finish. We could put in, it was a 20, let me finish!
Seeped in violence, drugs, bitterness, the Vietnam reckoning has begun.
Let me finish. We had the prettiest weapons, because we were the pretty boys. We had pretty phantoms that came in beautifully, like great eagles.
Flashback Los Angeles. Vietnam veteran John Gabron put on his army fatigues, took a rifle and 3 hostages before surrendering. No one hurt, released from jail into psychiatric care. Flashback Waukesha, Wisconsin. Donald Kemp recounts in his cell a fatal nightmare. Back from Vietnam, he couldn't part from his gun, kept it under his pillow, until, in a combat flashback, he killed his wife. His defense pleaded what's called post-Vietnam syndrome, uncontrollable depression. Appeal dismissed, serving a life sentence. Flashback James Carhart, another Vietnam lifer, who at home in Mount Holly, New Jersey, perhaps thought he was back in a free fire zone and shot at anyone who moved, as he'd been conditioned to do. He killed 2 policemen. All wars come home, but Vietnam is being fought again in America. The years don't heal, they bleed. By now, more Vietnam veterans have died since their return than died in the decade of Vietnam. 70,000 are in jail, 500,000 are psychiatric cases. Forget the war President Ford pronounces like Canute. And so, in Mount Holly, everywhere in today's ostrich America, they bid reality recede rather than share the guilt.
That war has been so controversial to the American public that they want to take it and shove it under the rug.
They were the youngest men America ever sent to war. They were the best educated. 85% of them finished high school. They were the best and the brightest, they were told. But now they say they were victims of the system. And this program is about young Americans as victims of war. They went to Vietnam, they were told, to win hearts and minds, or the ironic initials WHAM. And WHAM is what it became. Not a war of salvation, but destruction. And they in turn became living euphemisms. Veterans without valor, heroes of horror, hitmen for the CIA spooks who corrupted the military, cowboys bent on a body count of gooks. How it happened and what's happened to them now can only be told by young Americans themselves. This program is about a betrayed generation trying to find its way back, trying to purge the past. The post-Vietnam syndrome isn't the shell shock of other wars, but a deep torment and deeper sense of victimization. It was a war without frontiers or recognizable enemy, in which fear, confusion, frustration replaced all discipline, in which totally random killing was the illusion of military action. Until now, back home, rejected, reviled, alienated, the frustration and violence explodes again. At last count in U.S. prisons, local, state, federal, the number of inmates who are Vietnam vets was a staggering 35%. A common cause is their brutalization in the Vietnam War. Here at Chino Prison in Southern California, we hear the story of your average grunt, Charles Chuck Connell, a horror story.
Well, my father was a Marine. He fought in World War II, and to me it was a American's job to when the president called to go.
Connell is 25, doing life for a contract killing. In Vietnam, he gunned down civilians point blank. Yet few men in his circumstances would have the courage to admit atrocities.
I guess I was just an average 18-year-old, except for the Marine Corps training. I went to Vietnam, and it just changed my whole outlook.
The turning point for him and for the U.S. military was 1968, the Tet Offensive, when America's own terrible casualties triggered a war of attrition against civilians. In 2 weeks at Hue, at age 18, Cannell saw his company decimated, from 180 men to 40. And the once friendly GIs or grunts, now terrified, now brutalized by the body count campaign, began, in their language, to waste any gook in their gun sights.
I fired a burst of about 5 or 6 at her, and she hit the ground and rolled over, and I knew it was a girl then, and it just flashed through my mind all the complications I'd have going over there if she's still alive, so I just went ahead and killed her.
What was
she? She was about 18 or 19, I guess.
She was pregnant?
Yeah, she was a pregnant girl. I don't know why she darted out of the doorway like that. One of those things, you know.
Then what happened?
Well, her mom came running out, screaming, and somebody killed her mom. And after it, just, you know, I didn't have to kill that girl. It was easier to kill her than it was to go help her. Well, I became mostly very indifferent to everything. If we came across civilians, burn their house, take what you wanted out of it, you know, mess with their women, stuff like that. It was just a nasty way to treat the people. And didn't do our people any good by being able to get away with that. But
that's it. Nobody ever told you that's not the rules.
Well, there was the rules. If you couldn't find any communists, well, you go get the people that were helping them, which was everybody in the country, as far as I knew, except the Americans. Yeah, I'd say I was average American soldier in Vietnam.
What sort of things happened? Apart from what you did, what did you see?
I saw a lot of nasty things, but they were individual acts, you know.
What kind of things?
Oh, just perverted things, just nasty things, you know, that some people would do.
You're talking about the troops?
Yeah, the American troops. Well, you know, you're over there, you got almost a free rein on what you want to do. You're bound to see some weird things.
How weird did it get?
It got real weird. I don't know if you want me to...
Sure, tell us. Hang out.
Mutilating bodies, collecting ears and heads, doing sexual acts on dead bodies, torturing people, stuff like that.
This went on while other guys looked on?
Oh, yeah. Or when they didn't. It went on when other people looked on also.
You couldn't have conceived any of this before you went to Vietnam?
Oh, no. I couldn't conceive of America being wrong in a situation like that.
But was there anything in your Marine training that could have induced this?
I think the Marine training was made to make you, I don't like to say brutal, but I guess that's what it is. But it was Vietnam putting it in action that really, you know.
Before you went to Vietnam, were you emotionally stable?
Yeah, I'm sure I was. They give you tests and stuff before you go in the service. I passed all the psychological tests.
What do you think you learned out of Vietnam? What did it make you?
Well, it made me what I am today. Whatever that is. I'm in jail for, well, it's voluntary manslaughter, but it was murder. I killed a man for money over a dope deal. I don't really know what it made me. It made me sorry, I guess.
You took a contract to kill a man for $150, $30 down. Huh?
Yeah, and some heroin. Anybody that annoyed me, I would easily imagine them dead. It seemed like a simple solution to a problem is to eliminate the problem altogether. be to kill him. When I got back from Vietnam, I had nobody talk to me or anything, you know. It was just, well, okay, you made it back, great, man. Do what you want now. And what I should have done now, I see, is should have got a psychiatrist or somebody that I could tell these things to.
You called yourself a walking time bomb.
Yeah, it felt like that, you know, just waiting to go off someplace. Any little thing.
Chuck Connell, who found his conscience too late. A guy given a license to murder, then given life for it back home. A guy who went out a patriot and pinned his medal on a corpse. A guy who had a dream and awoke from it to kill a wife or a child or a figure in uniform. Chuck Connell, executioner, victim, scapegoat. A guy for whom there can be no release until there is someone who can say, sorry. Unpublished studies by the Veterans Administration indicate that 1 in 5 of the 2.5 million men who served in Vietnam have what's called serious, prolonged problems of readjustment. That's 500,000 men, or in Chuck Connell's words, 500,000 walking time bombs.
There was a war there where our friends died and we killed people. We understand what that means, but the rest of America doesn't.
Men self-damned who seek absolution but see only abandonment. America's burial of debate is what keeps the war alive at home with ever-increasing bitterness. It requires a president and a Congress who'll face the facts, apportion the blame, and make amends. America was once the model, the pride of all the world, and that could be restored.
At the beginning it was Stars and Stripes, and it changed to Dylan, Joan Baez, Judy Collins. You know, where have all the suns gone?
Where have all the flowers gone?
But that was yesterday, when America's youth gave it back its soul, or tried. For there's no compassion now for those who went to win hearts and minds and lost their own.
I was Flower Power, it was Haight-Ashbury in San Francisco, it was hippies, it was love-ins. And no, if I told anybody I was a Vietnam vet, they thought I was a killer. I was called a murderer. So I shut up. I withdrew for 7 years, and over those 7 years, that's the worst thing I could do. It built up inside of me. And so here I am in the group, going through war stories, we actually relive our own situations because it's something we have on our conscience.
These confessionals, called rap sessions, are spreading everywhere in America as the Nam vets struggle to rehabilitate themselves and keep emotions off the streets. Here in Los Angeles, psychiatrist Dr. Leonard Neff provides the much-needed therapy, someone to listen.
You feel you can go out and torture, kill, murder, rape, plunder people, and then you can come back and somehow adjust, and it's all the same. You can never be the same. Now,
never forget it.
Right.
They set a program up to make us killers, and there's no official program set up to bring us back down to be accepted by society so that we could accept society again.
At the Veterans Administration in Washington, there's this public pledge to care for those who have borne the battle. But opposite here, a wounded soldier seems to point accusingly. American society, it seems, doesn't wish to share the wounds of Vietnam, and compounding the anger and the violence of the Nam vets are the statistics of their abandonment. Up to 35% of all prison inmates are Vietnam-era veterans. One survey shows 1 in 5 arrested within 6 months of their return. Officially, that many are suffering from prolonged psychiatric effects. 500,000 Vietnam veterans received what's called other than honorable discharges, unentitled therefore to benefits. Result, the war's bitterness is now transferred to America.
The one indication is the fact that the VA has 2 or 3 bomb threats a week.
There also have been a number of cases where veterans have come in carrying guns.
Most NAM vets shun the VA because, ignoring the degree of trauma, the VA argues that Vietnam produced less neurosis than other wars. The VA has huge funds, $17 billion a year, misused. And so here in San Francisco, in every city, the veterans themselves struggle to restore principles and some normality. Advising on jobs, therapy, always talking it out, while warning of the growing casualties.
You're starting to see sporadic incidences all over the United States. These things will happen again and again unless there is some...
Jim Peacham directs Swords to Plowshares, and no fewer than 2,000 self-help projects are trying to convert soldiers to civilians as the Vietnam death toll mounts.
There have been over 50,000 died since they came back. And looking into those statistics farther, it's mostly what I would call self-destructive behavior, and I think it is a result of the psychiatric problems encountered in Vietnam.
And if the veterans can get help to get over what happened to them in Nam, I think they are one of the most potential forces for social change in this country. At the same time, if nothing is not done for them, I think they're one of the most potential forces for violence in this country.
What is your... Jack McCloskey calls his group twice-born men.
Half and half. I feel right now there seems to be a tendency more toward the violence. If you look at the jail situation.
In San Francisco County Jail, 35% of the prisoners are NAM vets, most of them here for drug-related crimes, the habit that was their inoculation out in NAM. They need clinics, not cells. And though the rap sessions extend even here, a man wearing the double stigma of Vietnam and jail is unlikely ever to find his way back.
Your medals don't mean shit once you're out. Even though you're a disabled vet, it doesn't mean anything to the VA.
Frustration. And that's why we're here now. It's something that my mind bleeds from hell when I go back to Vietnam. But it never leaves my head.
We could have decided not to go. We could have said no. Because somewhere we knew in our conscience, somehow we had been brought up to know that it was wrong, and then we had been brought up on John Wayne, and it was when I saw the troops landing in Da Nang, I thought, wow, this is my war. I don't want to miss out on it. I was 17 years old. I joined on my 17th birthday.
I joined when I was 8.
And I couldn't wait to get to Vietnam. I felt if I had missed Vietnam, I would have missed a vital thing of being a human being.
Can you, in fullest conscience, blame American society for all the atrocities? Did the guys have to do what they did there?
Sure. To survive, when you have a creation of things called free fire zones, when you are allowed and people tell you anything in that zone is game, you can kill that, anything in there, of course I blame American society.
But for the face-to-face acts of atrocity, shooting down what were obviously civilians, mutilating dead bodies, sexual perversions.
You were taught that. You were taught that these people, the Vietnamese people, were not human beings. You see, our society is based on one-upmanship. It's based on, especially for males, not being allowed to feel.
In San Francisco, NAM vet Ray Patch now shepherds a Skid Row kindergarten in the hope he can teach other values. He was one of McCloskey's twice-born men. He says Vietnam was a state of mind.
Most men in America are never given any opportunity to even be conscious of the fact that they have emotions. He can either hate somebody or he can be horny, but there's no other emotion that you're expected to feel.
When people went through Marine boot camp, there was a saying that went on at night. We used to, right before bedtime, we used to get up there and say, God bless my drill instructor. God bless the Marine Corps. Pray for war. Pray for war. That's sickness. That's how it happens.
You tell me there are people marching in our streets. The signs they carry say that we don't fight for peace. Tell them that we're fighting for the old red, white, and blue. Did they forget Pearl Harbor and Korea too?
And in the end, maybe even more damaging, has been a kind of simple-minded Americanism. There's been such a long preoccupation and internalization of something called the American dream, not all of which is bad, and some of which still has perhaps the energizing ethos for this country, but which has become, for many young people, more of a sort of rationale for almost anything, including evil, than a source of ethical behavior. And many had modeled themselves to a considerable extent on John Wayne, from John Wayne films, which really go a long way toward shaping the masculine ethos in American society.
Put it on the camp! Those people have it, we don't. Over!
And what they meant by the John Wayne thing was the easy violence and a kind of blind loyalty to one's country.
I think the generation of Americans that went over to that war for the next 20 years are going to be in bad, bad shape. I am not going to pick up the gun again for anybody, for any ideology, whether it's communism, Americanism, or socialism, not without questioning why. I am not buying ideology again, no more in my life.
Find the cost of freedom buried in the ground.
The ideals in themselves were not wrong. They simply couldn't be exported. And the belief that they could and must, that simple-minded Americanism by which anything was justified, has finally, inevitably, cheapened the American way of life itself. It cost $50,000 to send a man to Vietnam. It cost $22,000 a year to keep him in a VA hospital. $9,000 to incarcerate him in prison, and just $2,000 to bury him. So much for false values. America, in its bicentennial era, has to begin all over again to try and find true values. For today's generation, lost far more in pride than in lives in Vietnam.
Find the cost of freedom buried in the ground. Mother Earth will swallow you. Lay your